Hello, good morning, and welcome to AMA Puget Sound's Coffee Talk series, live on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific. Sorry, Tim and I were in the middle of a conversation and realized, oh, we have to go live now. So we'll talk later about subtitles. So our guest today is Tim Mehta. He currently works as an experimentation manager at Root Insurance remotely while living in sunny Florida. He and I actually met a few years ago when we could still do in-person events at our chapter's day-long conference, Market Mix, which I have some news about that later on. But Tim and I met there. We were both wearing Converse Chuck Taylors. And I was the then president, and I think you were like, wait, you're the president? You're wearing Chucks? And I'm like, yes, yes, I am. I am that person. So hello, Tim. How are you?
Hey, yeah, the Chuck Taylors, I miss those.
I know.
Now that we're in remote days, I don't really have many reasons to wear shoes at all.
Same here. Same
Yeah,
here. A
yep,
lot of socks. But you're in
yeah,
Florida.
exactly. Yeah, things
Um,
are going well though. Thanks.
yeah, yeah, it was pre-pandemic life, and we were in person. Everything was great, and then so it was only what, like 6 months later, I think. I don't even remember. Maybe 9 months later, total shutdown. So, and that's kind of a segue. Because in terms of the pandemic, I'm thinking of the Titanic meme of the old woman, like it's been 84 years.
Yeah,
But honestly, like,
definitely feels that
yeah,
way.
This March will mark 2 years. We're going to be heading into our third year of this global pandemic, and that abruptly shifted everybody. Obviously, we all know. I'm just kind of reiterating for people, like, historical purposes, but we all know what happened. We were all, abruptly shoved out of our offices, and we had to start doing all of this virtual meeting things, which we were starting to do, but it really wasn't that big yet. I'm still thinking the Jetsons, so long ago, but we're living it now. And I remember a lot of Tiger King backgrounds. There was that manager who turned herself into a potato. That was 2 years ago, but for real, we're zoomed out. What are we going to do? You have some ideas. Let's talk about them.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks for having me on. Super excited to chat. Good to catch up. So when the pandemic hit in our area, I'd actually just started a new role that was already fully remote. So I was kind of fortunate in the regards of they already had that infrastructure set up for remote work. But since then I've been working remotely, and I actually plan on working remotely as long as I can. I think for some people, being in the office is better. They're more invigorated, more energy. For me, I've got two kids at home who I get to watch kind of grow up while in between meetings, which is great. So until they scare me out of here, I love working remote. It has a lot of great affordances, and I can focus better than being in the office. But yeah, I know you wanted to chat about this LinkedIn post, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Tell us about it. What brought you to just writing this up? Because obviously this had been mulling in your head for a while. What brought you to, all right, I'm just going to lay this out for everybody. And I'm going to link it below so you can follow along later.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think this was like right when I started my paternity for our 5 month old we have now, um, and I had just been experiencing a lot of different areas of remote meetings. So when I first started this role at Microsoft that I was at before this at Root, um, it was different. It's different versus the agency I was working at before. And when I say
Mhm.
different, I mean the culture of remote meetings and how everything works. And then moving over to Root, that changed again right away. So I started to notice all these patterns um, of different tactics that would improve engagement in the meetings. I
Mhm.
think people who prefer to be in office really enjoy that kind of human person to person connection that really you miss during when you're working remotely.
Mhm.
And then you have people who cameras off, mic off, they don't talk a lot during meetings, who um, being remote actually lessens the chance of them interacting and engaging. It kind of gives them more of that out. But there's tactics and strategies you can do for those particular people as well to get them engaged. So uh, I just thought, I've been kind of taking notes, trying things out, um, and so I thought I'd share them with everybody. I have an Evernote with some of these notes that I just kind of like started to take for myself, based off some content that I've been starting to consume. I was mostly focusing on marketing material, and then I got a new role as a program manager when I was at Microsoft, and that's when I'm like, okay, uh, I know that communication is probably the most important or the biggest factor when it comes to managing a successful program. Not
Mhm.
just conversations like this, but communication streams, channels of communication. So I
Mhm.
started to pick up some books, read some articles. I'll share them. I'll share them with you towards the end, that you can share out with the listeners or watchers. Um, but I just got really interested in it, which was, a year before that, I never would have thought I'd be reading books about meetings. And
Right.
so these are things I kind of noticed. The first of which was, and probably one of the most commonly discussed things about remote meetings, is sharing your video.
Mhm.
When I was on the agency side, you know, they highly encouraged people to share video because we had been in person with each other before. So I think that
Mhm.
was a little less difficult, a little easier. But then at the new role, at Microsoft, I was sharing my camera and nobody else was sharing their video. And so
Oh,
as
okay.
the new person, it was, I almost felt like I had to share, almost obligated, based on my previous experience, to show myself like, hey, I'm not just a floating head.
Right.
And then eventually I just started to adopt the, no camera thing. And I discovered when I made that transition for myself, this is more firsthand, that I just had a lot less anxiety in meetings and I found
Mhm.
myself engaging in the meetings more.
Okay.
Um, I
Okay.
think when you kind of picture yourself in a meeting room in person, you're really only looking at the person who's talking. When everyone's sharing their camera and you're, working from home, you
Mhm.
kind of have this view of like, okay, people are looking at me, but I'm not, I'm not the one talking. And then you start
Right.
looking at yourself, and then guess what? You have no idea what the presenter or organizer is talking
Yep.
about because you're
Yep.
so distracted. And then
Yeah.
I noticed, yeah. And so I found for myself and also for certain people I worked with that they never shared their camera, but when they didn't share their camera, that's what gave them the extra energy, you know what I mean, or
Mhm.
confidence to speak up more and be more engaged.
Sure.
So, yeah, and I also saw some resources that actually I think Adam Grant had shared. I think I
Mhm.
linked to it there in this post that said people, when they're forced to share their camera, they're less likely to engage. Um,
Mhm.
and it
Yeah.
increases exhaustion, which is 100% the case for me. I
Mhm.
remember, some of the early days at Root when everyone does share their camera. I had 3 or 4 meetings a day, and if I had to share my camera for all of those, then end of the day I was just like I
Mhm.
was done. So another part, another experiment I tried with this was, so at Root everyone shared their camera. I hosted a meeting or like some type of forum where I think about 28 to 30 people joined,
Mhm.
and in the meeting norms, so I added meeting norms to the invite. The very last thing was that sharing your camera was optional. Now,
Okay.
I had already been here for about 3 months. Everyone always shared their camera, even on town hall meetings with thousands of people. So as soon as I said that, I told everyone I'm going to turn my camera off so we can get into the conversation.
Mhm.
About 5 minutes into the meeting, only like 5 of the 30 people still had their camera on.
Wow.
Less than halfway into the meeting, nobody had their camera on anymore,
Mhm.
and people were engaging. Like it wasn't just a presentation; it was a collaborative kind of like forum, like I said, where
Mhm.
we were getting a lot of action from different people, and so that was a very rewarding kind of experience because it's one of those things you kind of test out and try, and uh, you know, like you're like, wow, that worked. You
Right,
know, I
exactly.
yeah, like I feel better about not sharing my camera, and
Mhm.
these people, obviously that's something of a preference to them to not have to
Yes.
share their camera, especially in huge meetings like that. So that's where
Exactly.
that first one came from.
Okay.
Um, the second one being trying intro music. This is not possible on Google Meet, unfortunately, but on Microsoft Teams and I think on Zoom, you can share your computer audio. Um, and this kind of goes into with which one is it? Number 6, which is the first 5 minutes just being kind of buffer.
Yeah.
Um, especially with like presentation focused meetings that may not be so high in urgency. Um,
Mhm.
I just, I'll get in the room a minute early and I'll play some some light classical music.
Okay.
And this is something that I got from one of these books that I wanted to try out, and it's a real good icebreaker. It brings people out of their kind of work brain, which is
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
not exactly like laid back and relaxed and conversational, and it helps them kind of take a step out of that for a moment and like kind of refresh. So
Mhm.
even if they're just listening to it, they don't necessarily need to be talking about it. It helps kind of ease them into whatever the next transition is that they're doing.
Right.
So, and it can be a great conversation starter. People are like, "Do you hear something?" Like,
Yeah.
am I the only one hearing this music? But I found that to be, for a lot of reasons, helpful because it gets people to
Mhm.
let their guard down early, which
Yeah.
makes them more engaged throughout the meeting,
Mhm.
and it definitely eases the tension of every meeting that you go into.
Exactly. I would
Yeah.
imagine though you should, like you said that you play classical. I would imagine you have to be a bit careful of what you're going to play. You're not going to play, yeah, you're not going to play rap, when it's
Oh
supposed
yeah,
to be like a meeting about finance. Like
yeah.
it's kind of
Know
pulls
your
you
audience. Yeah.
out of the moment, or just Weird Al. You're not going to be doing that, but have you found? Um, what have you found? Have you found that classical is the best because no lyrics
Yeah,
and
I haven't really tried anything else.
okay,
I'm not I'm,
okay,
I'm not brave enough. I try to
gotcha.
just do something that is totally universal,
Yes.
uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
very unlikely I'm going to offend anybody.
Right, right. So trying to find that, like you said, universal, non-offensive music is really helpful. Chill hop, probably. I know YouTube has a pretty good selection of chill hop, as well as Amazon, and those are pretty good, just
Yeah.
for some background music. And they do it by season, which I love. So
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, my kids listen to it on as they go to sleep. So
Yeah.
very cool. So
Yeah.
music is a uniter.
Yes, it is. It's a
Mhm.
universal language,
Yes.
especially when there's no lyrics.
Right.
Yeah. So that was one. That's again, the technology has to allow it. Otherwise, you could just start with banter. But
Mhm.
this third one here, this is I don't know. This is more so a kind of conversational tactic, not specific to meetings, but it does help, especially in the beginning of meetings, to again kind of break the ice and get people relaxed and ready to chat.
Mhm.
But some people, like you can see in the background, I have some wall decor my wife put up,
Mhm.
some books, and a lot of people will put things in their background pretty purposely, like
Yeah.
picture of their family.
Yeah.
So I find it an easy conversation starter because the
Mhm.
beginning of meetings can really make or break how awkward it's going to be. If everyone just joins and no one talks for the first 5 minutes, it's
Mhm.
painful. Like,
Mhm.
you want people to ease into it, like I said, to have them more engaged during the meeting itself. So just asking people, if they have something that's obviously supposed to be kind of showed off or interesting,
Yeah.
asking them about it. Some people in their image, even if they're not sharing their camera, will use a funny image. At Microsoft, this guy used a picture of like a guy holding a baby, like a cartoon holding a baby, because he'd just had a baby. So yeah, so there's when people are expressing themselves through their background or image, it's
Mhm.
a really easy icebreaker to talk about.
Sure.
Um, Yeah.
Yeah. Do you recommend that that everyone should automatically put like one piece or something in their background that is a conversations piece,
If
or
yeah, if you want people to ask you about it, like
okay.
personality type wise, it differs. Some people don't want, they don't want to share their camera. They don't want people looking
Yep.
into their house. A lot of people at Root will blur their background
Yep.
because, it's not like everyone has an office to work in, and they also maybe have kids at home who may be running around. So
Yep.
it really depends. If that person is comfortable enough to do it, then it is a great conversation starter. I saw
Mhm.
one video of a guy who his Zoom background was a video of himself bringing himself coffee.
I've seen that one. I love that one.
Yeah, so things like that,
Yep. Have
can
fun
get
with
people
it.
creative. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like you said, even if you're not going to have your actual back, like your, like this is my, like this is that's all real. Those are books and
yeah,
stuff. But um, if you're not going to have your actual background, like your virtual background should not necessarily mean something, but it should be something to start a conversation. Whether it's, I like fishing, that kind of
yeah.
thing. Try to give something to the conversation. Yeah, I like that.
Yep. And so the next one on here, that's my fidget spinner, is to get some type of fidget toy
Yeah.
or like a fidget spinner, which is what I use to actually improve your attention and focus.
Mhm.
We're especially working from home.
Yeah.
You're on a meeting and you're on your computer, which has an amazing amount of distractions and things for you to easily lose your attention
Yep.
from the speaker or the people talking in the meeting. And then, if you're not sharing your camera, you also have your phone and you've got things around the house that you can
Mhm.
just kind of look around and like, oh, I've got a bill over there.
Right.
So this was something I picked up in this book. Here, I'm gonna be a nerd and show. A lot of these tips are from this book,
Not mine.
Surprising Science of Meetings, where they actually do a good job providing data supported, like data driven insights about meetings. One of which is when you give people something to fidget with, it actually helps them focus on
Mhm.
something. So think
Yeah.
about when you're driving and listening to a podcast. The driving part makes listening to the podcast more enjoyable because
Mhm.
if you weren't driving and just listening to it, there's a lot of other distractions that you may be, tempted to start to engage with.
Mhm.
I know it's the same for me. I can't just sit and listen to a podcast. I need to be like doing something with it for me
Mhm.
to really engage with it. And it's the same thing with meetings.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can be, a fidget spinner.
Mhm.
Sometimes it could just be a pen, and you'll
Mhm.
get some people who like to click the pen over and over. Hopefully
Yep.
they're on mute.
Yep. Yep.
um,
I do that. I
but
have a
yeah,
what's really funny, and I'm glad that you saw some evidence on this, some science backed evidence. Years ago, when I was earning my marketing degree, I had a teacher who was she had heard about all of this. This is like 15 years ago, and she made sure to bring a box of toys, quiet toys, slinkies, that kind of thing, and would bring them to class. And you'd pass the little box around and take a little
nice.
something to fidget with, because she found that students paid more attention. And she also fed us, by the way. She would bring in
Oh,
snacks, taco
oh
dip.
yeah,
Um, so it's great to hear that, yes, she was absolutely right. And the fact that we're bringing this now into the workplace, because I have to fidget with something. I don't know anybody that
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. Same. You
Hmm.
mentioned food. That teacher was very smart. I don't have this on this list, but and kind of a general thing is that people will act more favorably and positive after they've eaten. There was a study done with judges, and
Hmm.
in the early in the day when they had just eaten breakfast, they had very favorable
Hmm.
outcomes. And
Yeah.
then as lunch approached, it was down to very low probability of a favorable outcome. And then
Hmm.
right after lunch, it went right back up and started to go down. So
Yep.
the hypothesis being, when we're full and when we're fed, we're happier,
Yep.
versus being hungry and wanting to get out of whatever we're doing. And
Hmm.
I think it definitely makes sense for meetings to
Hmm.
try. Like if you know you're going to need a very engaged audience, a 1 o'clock meeting is probably better than an 11 o'clock meeting because
Yes.
you won't get those stragglers who are still maybe they missed breakfast and they're really hungry um, or have it like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, so people have just eaten. Those are really the optimal times for food wise when to schedule things. And I have this on here, and I'll skip it when I get to it. But try not to schedule things over lunch either, especially remotely. Um, it's hard, like people are. I think Microsoft just did a study where they found out people were working more
Yeah.
from home, and so I think it's more important for us to block times off for
Mhm.
ourselves to step away and
Yeah.
you know just get that mental break, get some food in you. Um, because when I, at least at Microsoft, it was a very meeting heavy job that I had. So chances were people had meetings before and after lunch.
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
scheduled over their lunch, that means you just took away their their hour or less to actually eat. So
Mhm.
that's something I want to throw in there and mention. Your teacher's really smart for
Yeah,
for doing
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. And I'd like to add stay hydrated.
Oh yeah,
Drink your water.
and caffeinated.
Drink your water, people. Yes. I had my coffee, now I'm drinking water. But yeah, it's funny like when you were talking about that study with the judges, I've heard that study as well, and my the whole thing I'm thinking, Snickers made a fortune off this whole ad campaign.
Yep, it's true. Snickers will get you a better ruling from a judge. Just got to make sure he eats it right beforehand.
Exactly, just slip it to him. It's not a
Yeah.
bribe, sir. I'm just concerned.
Yep. What
Yeah.
else I got? I got doing lots of screen sharing. So
Yeah.
this is I'm gonna kind of combine this with taking notes.
Mhm.
But one thing that is really difficult during meetings is following without a visual. I'm in a lot of meetings where there's no visual. It's just kind of collaborative. We're talking, updating each other like a stand up. But again, it's hard to stay focused when you're not kind of occupying multiple senses, being visually and audio. So this is something that I actually hear from people pretty frequently when I ask about feedback for meetings. Is that it would have been great to have a visual, kind of thing to follow along with.
Okay.
Um, so if you're presenting something, obviously you're going to have a visual. If you're in a stand up, showing the tickets, within your project management system. If you're talking about a particular website or page in that website, showing the page, having a visual is going to keep people from getting kind of vulnerable to that distraction I was talking about before,
Yeah.
because you're kind of occupying another sense of theirs to keep them focused. And if you're not sure what to put, the something that you should always put anyway is just share the notes as you take them.
Mhm.
um, this has been really helpful because when someone's kind of has a talking point in a meeting that you feel is worthy of writing down, you want to make sure you're interpreting it correctly. I've had many meetings where I'm taking notes and I'm sharing them, and then someone at the end of their point says, "Oh, by the way, they correct the notes." And without having that sharing, I would have we would have misinterpreted what this person said, and it gives people a chance to follow along and also to
Mhm.
clarify, any miscommunications that commonly happen within meetings. Um,
Mhm.
it again just keeps people engaged. It keeps yourself engaged, and in that way, you do have notes to send out right after the meeting,
Yeah.
as opposed to like kind of scratching your own notes down and then transposing those after the
Mm.
meeting, and all those things. And yeah, so that's something you can always share if you're looking to keep people engaged.
Mhm. Especially if you put like the action items at the bottom,
Yep.
and that like you said, it keeps that engagement and it keeps everybody on task, so you can still continue to see the same goal that you're all going toward.
Yep, absolutely.
Notes. Document, document, document.
Yeah, I think something I would say is it's better to over document and it's better to over communicate versus under communicate. And I'll actually rephrase that because I mentioned this earlier. It's better to document a lot and communicate often versus to, not document enough and communicate, infrequently.
Right.
So maybe not using the phrase over and under, more so just if you're doing it a lot, it's there's less value lost in the risk of
Mhm.
doing more
Right.
than doing less there.
Yep.
And So I try to do it in a way like where, in the meeting invite, I don't know how many meeting invites I get with nothing in the agenda or description. And
Oh,
and it's frustrating, like, especially if they're about to share out a deck, for
mhm,
example, or something. So I always just make sure before I send a meeting invite out, I need to have a clear goal written in there and an agenda. Um,
mhm,
what's their
mhm.
desired outcome?
Yeah,
And if it is a presentation, then actual some like TLDR, too long didn't read summary of
yeah,
the results of it and a link
mm,
to the deck.
right.
Because it like a lot of people who you invite may not be able to make it, or you might spend an extra 5-10 minutes ahead of time explaining things to people,
Mhm,
helping them get the context that you wouldn't need to if you just put a meeting description in the invite with a
mhm,
goal for the
right.
meeting.
Exactly, and expectations,
Yeah,
like, is this a type of meeting where we're gonna be brainstorming? Or like you said, is this a presentation where just kinda like, watch, we're not taking
yeah,
feedback kind of thing. So, yeah, definitely setting that expectation. Yeah, so they know what they're walking into. Absolutely.
yeah.
I've had a number of those as well, and I've been guilty of it, doing it myself.
I think on the executive level, from what seen through on Microsoft side, maybe not executive, but kind of senior director levels, is that they really appreciate pre-reads,
Mhm,
because I think one of the things about senior leadership is that their communication windows are very small. So they have, and that's why you see a lot of abbreviated kind of
mhm,
messages from them when you're in meetings with them, or in one-off conversations, is that they're they have so many communication streams happening that they have to really consolidate and make sure,
mhm,
what's the main point that they're trying to get across,
mhm,
or learn. And so, in respect of their time, providing things like a pre-read to help them have the information they need,
mhm,
to determine if A, they even need to go to the meeting, and B, when they go to the meeting, they don't have to do all this absorbing in the meeting of what's happening, and they can immediately provide the input and
yep,
kind of move to the next thing. So
right.
that's something that if you're scheduling things with senior leadership, it's definitely worth having a pre-read document
Mhm.
in there or agenda for them to prepare.
Right. Another thing, and I've seen this in meetings too, where if you don't send that out ahead of time, I think you even said this early on, like then you're spending that first 5-10 minutes of recapping everything when you could have all been on really like on the same page, literally, ahead of time. So you can just go dive into what you need to. So it's a time saver,
It
definitely.
is. Yeah.
Mhm.
Some other things, I see we only have a few minutes here. Uh, really expect the first couple minutes to be banter or waiting.
Mhm.
Um, Even in the office, I would say. So this is agnostic to being remote. People, especially now, have back-to-back meetings. They have things in between their meetings they'd like to do, like get some drinks, a
Mhm.
snack,
Yeah.
check on their kids.
Yeah.
But give buffer. So prepare that ahead of time in your agenda and your talking points, and determine, okay, if we need to have a 5-minute buffer, I have 25 minutes.
Mhm.
Do I actually need more time than that? Then, bump your meeting time up from 30 minutes to 45 minutes to create that
Mhm.
buffer,
Right.
or more room for that buffer. Um, so that's always something to consider too. And I actually encourage it, because if especially for meetings that are supposed to be collaborative, you want to ease the tension, ahead of time.
Mhm.
You want to just help people feel comfortable and get them to start talking, even if it's not about work, so that
Mhm.
they feel more comfortable talking when the meeting content comes around. So that's actually, I would say, a really important
Mhm.
part of meetings. Try not to schedule back to back or meetings during lunch. We talked about that briefly.
Mhm.
Then the next one, follow up notes.
Yeah.
I think another great part about sharing your notes as you take them is, you mentioned the next steps or action items. Tag people in them as you're taking them, to create accountability up
Yes.
front. Yeah,
Mhm.
and then
Absolutely.
as you send it out afterwards, keep that tag in there, that at or whatever tool function it is, so that they're, like, not publicly, but everyone in the meeting, transparently accountable for whatever task you have for them.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep.
And then I always send these meeting like results with next steps to myself as well. And I put a little flag on there or remind me about this in a week, uh, because it's so easy for people to get a to do in an email and not get to it, become
Right.
distracted. So that's been helpful for me in following up with people and keeping things moving. Uh,
Nice.
then I see we're at 2:30. Do we have a couple more minutes?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Yep.
I do have to hop here in a few minutes for another meeting, but
Sorry, I
speaking
did
of,
back.
yeah, it's all good. The other thing that's really helpful is we kind of touched on this is time.
Mhm.
Um, I'm an advocate of 15-minute increments for
Mhm.
meetings. So instead of thinking, should this be a 30-minute meeting or a 1 hour meeting, like
Mhm.
starting with, should this be a 15-minute meeting or a 30-minute meeting or 45-minute meeting or hour meeting?
Mhm.
Um, I really like the 45-minute meeting for things that are like presentation, and there's going to be a lot of rabbit holes that are going to go down. And then 15-minute meetings that are just kind of almost replacing an email in the sense of,
Mhm.
you don't necessarily need an in-depth conversation. You just need clarification on something that an email may, take a little bit extra time to do. Um,
Mhm.
but, I think, especially with people being in more meetings now, remotely versus in person, we have to take an extra step to respect other people's time. And if you can free up time for people and still, the other part about keeping them short, on top of them appreciating it, as far as saving them time, is retention. Uh,
Yeah.
if you're in an hour meeting, you have an hour's worth of content, you're going to get less percentage of that content actually retained by people that they're actually going to remember.
Yep.
Versus if it's a 15 or 30-minute meeting, that's a much smaller window for people to need to focus, and it's more likely they'll be focused for a larger percentage of it too. So
Mhm.
that's another advantage of a shorter meeting, is that you can really get straight to the point and have better chances of people remembering what it is that we were talking about.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a firm believer if you end early, send people on their way.
Yes,
Let them go early. I'm a firm advocate of that. Of like, oh,
you
we're done
can.
15 minutes early. See ya.
Yeah, you can charge them. You can say, okay, I saved 15 minutes of your time today.
Mhm.
What do you get paid by hour?
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm of the don't have a meeting for the sake of having a meeting.
yeah.
Big believer in that.
Yeah, I really appreciate those no meeting days that
Mhm.
people do across a lot of different organizations. I
Mhm.
think it gives people a chance to focus on the actual work. I mean, if we're meeting more, that means something is not getting addressed as much in regards
Mhm.
to the deliverables you need to provide.
Right.
So I think giving that time back to everybody and um, letting people kind of have a day to just focus on work and not have the social anxiety of sharing their camera
Or the
during
just
meetings and
yeah,
everything.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And the last thing is making like experimenting. Like what do you like
Yeah,
baking volcano? No, just kidding. I'm teasing.
yeah,
But like what things have you experimented or what should we test? Because
yeah.
we're marketers, we do A/B testing.
Yeah, that's my role. Unfortunately, sample size wise, you can't get a lot, but I've talked a lot about pretty much everything I've talked
Mhm.
about here has been the result of me trying things out and testing things. I think
Mhm.
you can also look at the different tools that your technology provides. So there's an option for breakout rooms and a lot of different tools. Teams has together mode. Um, Tinker around with the different functions. I think we talked about accessibility for a moment, and I tried using the subtitles function on Google Meet, and it was really good. Like when me and my wife watch TV and movies, we always have subtitles on. We our hearing is fine, but it really helps us kind of follow the story and like
Mhm.
understand everything that's going on,
Yep.
because you can easily miss, especially with like TV shows and funny accents. You can miss things. I think in meetings, it's something that you do it for yourself, but you're
Mhm.
not just testing for everybody else, but you're also testing to make yourself more, efficient in meetings. So I might try using subtitles more for that
Mhm.
reason too. And recording meetings, I think, is also really important, especially for training or walkthroughs,
Mhm.
um, or even presentations. So if you did this awesome project, it led to a 10% increase in annual revenue, something crazy, and then you have a readout for it, you're going to want to record that just for your own sanity. Um, I've
Mhm.
gone through, like, in certain meetings at Microsoft, I recorded them much more frequently, pretty much every meeting. And there are certain ones where difficult conversations might happen, whether it's a miscommunication or, you know, uh, differing of professional opinion that gets heated. And it's really helpful to go back and listen and analyze, like, how did I handle that? How could I handle it better? Who in the room handled something really well? I want to
Mhm.
watch them do it again and
Yeah.
understand, what kind of approach did they take? And I found that to be pretty helpful from a self development perspective for these
Mhm.
types of meetings.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't done the recording of a meeting. I mean, obviously the coffee talk, but it's it's something I should start doing because yeah, you might forget something. You might go back 6 months later, like, I forgot we had that conversation. We were talking like this seems like we should be doing that, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's great just because we have the ability to retain that information.
Yeah, and Microsoft Teams will transcribe it too. So if you're not sure when in the meeting you said something, you could just, you know,
Yep.
Control or Command F, find it within the
Yep.
transcript and pull it up. It's real cool.
Golly, I mean, technology is helping us, but
Yeah,
there are a lot of little nuances, a lot of little buttons and things. But like you said, just, just play around, just tinker around, see what
yeah,
happens, and, don't turn yourself into a potato.
yeah.
So as we're wrapping up, we did go over a little bit. Um, is there anything else that maybe we didn't cover or that you'd like the audience to know to reiterate?
I would say just try to think about, like, everyone's home situation is different as far
Mhm.
as, working from home. Some people have their own room. Like, I'm fortunate enough to have, like, a little office here with a door. We had to get this door installed, by the way, because of our 3-year-old. Um, and then some people, they're in their bedroom. They have
Yeah.
animals, people in the background. So I would say
Mhm.
expectations wise, just try to give people the benefit of the doubt if they choose to not share their camera, or,
Mhm.
they can't get to the mute button quick enough. Things like that.
Yep. Yep, exactly. Awesome. I know you have to hop off. Thank you, Tim, so much for your time today and showing us and sharing with us how we can make meetings a little more bearable because we're going to be doing them now that we do virtual meetings. It's here to stay. So we might as well
That's
make the
right.
best of it. So thank you so much, Tim. I
Awesome.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Julie. See ya.
All right. Have a great day. And if you like this episode, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.